winter. And winter is definitely soup and stew season. So I'm going to make an Irish style stew. It's actually an Irish Guinness beef stew. And I got this recipe from Karen with Food and Family's first cookbook. And she does have another cookbook here too, and they both have really nice recipes in it. And I've been wanting to make this because I noticed it's perfect for this weather. So I already have one. I did a beef and barley soup a year or two ago, and it is made very similar to this. So whenever you get two cooks together, or more than one cook, everyone's going to do their own style of cooking. So I do change up a little in this particular recipe. I add potatoes where there weren't potatoes in this one. I use a different kind of beer. And this is a fantastic recipe for this weather. It's so good. So I'm going to show you the stew. This is the finished stew here. And it's just nice and thick. Perfect consistency. A soup is much thinner, it's more brothy, and a stew is thicker, and that's what the difference is. So whenever you sear your meat, it's rolled in flour first. So what I'm going to do is take a little taste of this now, and then I'm going to show you how I made it. I'm just going to taste the broth, and let's do that. This is amazing. It's so delicious. So I cooked this 3.5 hours, and then for about 15 minutes at the end of that time, I cooked my potatoes. So this recipe didn't have potatoes in it, but I added them. So I'm going to show you how to make this, and I hope you try this. It's absolutely yummy. Thank you everyone for watching. This is the recipe, which I am going to leave in the description, and it is on page 91 in Karen's very first cookbook. So these are all the ingredients you're going to need. She has like a 2.5 pound chuck roast, but I'm using 2.5 pounds of beef shanks because it's all going to get cooked down anyway. And then we're going to have bacon, celery, carrots, onions, bay leaves, tomato paste, and we're going to use 1.5 bottles of, it calls for Guinness, but it really doesn't matter. I'm using a Modelo dark beer. You're going to have thyme, salt, pepper, and beef broth. And it's really delicious. I do have a recipe already made. It's beef barley, and it's very similar to this, but I didn't call it an Irish stew, but I think I could have. So let's get started. You want to cook all your bacon down. Okay, once you render all the fat out, you can put these bacon pieces on a paper towel to drain. You want to stir these until they're softened and translucent, about 3 minutes. After you chop your meat up in about 1 inch to 1.5 inch size pieces, you're going to salt and pepper it to taste and roll it in flour. And it is the flour that makes it a stew instead of a soup because it thickens it. So you want to generously salt your meat because you're cooking this, and it won't be real salty because when you cook meat it absorbs it. So now we're going to just toss it in the flour until it's completely coated. And I'm going to cook this in some olive oil. Brown it on all sides. Now I'm going to add some minced garlic. Okay, right when it's almost completely brown, you can start adding your beef broth, your tomato paste, and all your vegetables and your thyme, all your other ingredients. Now you want to stir everything around. Once we get all of our seasonings, we're going to salt and pepper a little more and thyme. We're going to cook this anywhere from 2 to 4 hours. We're going to bring it to a boil and then put it down to a simmer for the remainder of the time. So this isn't in the recipe, but I'm going to add maybe a teaspoon of Worcestershire because it always adds flavor. Okay, these are the bones, the shank bones, which I'm using instead of a chuck roast. You could use any kind of beef you want. Chuck roast is typically what's used, but I'm going to put these bones in here so that they flavor it more. And there will be a lot of meat that I will take off the bones as well. Now that it has reached a boil, I'm going to turn it down to low, a 1 or 2. I'm going to put the lid on and cook it for 3 to 4 hours, but I will check it every 30 minutes. Add an onion skin in. I just tasted this and it doesn't have enough salt, so I'm going to add like a teaspoon more of salt. And then we will check it in about an hour. 30 minutes and then taste it in about an hour. Okay, this is the stew after 2 hours. I tasted it, it tastes good. The meat is tender, but I do want to go another hour just to cook it longer. But it tastes good and the meat is cooked. Okay, this is after 3.5 hours, and I cooked it more because I wanted to cook this meat that's on the bone a little longer as well. I add potatoes. Karen doesn't have it in her recipe, but I'm adding 1 extremely large potato, so it's equivalent of probably 3 regular sized potatoes. And now I'm going to put this at a medium high heat for about 15 to 20 minutes until the potatoes are fork tender.